What's up, guys? So I figured it was time to upgrade my Simcraft video. It was a little bit out of date and the video quality wasn't brilliant, so here's a new one. So Simcraft, it's really good. It's going to help you get your stats in line, make sure you're optimized as well as possible, and it's going to let you know how much damage you're looking at you should be doing and what you should be aiming for during raids. And it will give you loads and loads of other information as well. So first thing you need to do, make sure this number here matches this number here. It's going to make sure that Simcraft is up to date. If it isn't the same, you're going to want to download Simcraft with the link there. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to import a character. So let's import Ragewang. There we go. All up to date, looking good. So if this isn't if this isn't what your character has in game right now, go onto game, log off, and then you should be fine. When you log out a game, it should update the armory. If it doesn't, just go in, log off again, and it should have done it. Alright, so I'm going to import in the bottom right hand corner. And you're going to get loads and loads of information. Now, you really don't have to worry about this. It's just stuff that's there. If you get into it and you look into it and you start getting interested in it and learning about it, you can go in and tweak things to maybe see, should I change this, should I change that? But right now, this is what is generally known as optimized, and this is based off of what professionals, like top tier players usually do. So don't worry about this too much. So this is the sim thing. This is kind of all the information. This tells the program what's going to happen, how it's going to use things, and what's going on. So we need to now tell it what kind of situation we want it to work in. So if we go back a second, we go to options. What we have here, we have our region, our armory specs. So we can use the active one, or we can use inactive. We could ask it to do fury or whatever. We have the amount of iterations. That's how many times it's going to run, and then give you an average. So if you want like a really pinpoint average, you can run it 100,000 times. If you want it kind of quicker, you can just run it like 10,000 times or something. Although generally I wouldn't run it under 10,000, but for this we'll do 10,000. You can pick your fight length, so you can have like a 10-minute fight, or you can have a 3-minute fight, something like that. That's going to just vary, so you can kind of get a better sim on what you might be doing on different bosses. Let's keep it about 400 seconds for now. You can give a percentage on the varied length, that's fine. We can pick the fight style. You got patchwork, hectic ad cleave, beast lord, whatever. Patchwork is generally your single target damage, so we'll just leave that. Player skill, people would like to think they're elite, but generally we go for good because, let's be real about things. So good is a good place to be. You can have default role as auto, but I like to keep it as DPS because I never sim anything else. Generally, Simcraft will not be any good for simcrafting tanks or healers. In fact, it pretty much doesn't work for tanks or healers. Tanks, it does work, but it's a bit weird. I generally wouldn't do it. I would just look online. So DPS, Simcraft is primarily for DPS. Number of enemies, we can pick 1 or 2 if you want like a cleaving fight, or you can go up to 10 or 20 or whatever. But again, for single target, you're going to have a number of enemies at 1. Raid boss, you can pick whatever you might be hitting. All have different resistances and things, so if you're only running heroics or whatever, you can change that. The rest of this you don't really need to change, and you don't really need to change anything in advanced either. So it's mainly the basic options on the far left and the number of enemies on the middle. So now we have that in place. There's other options as well. So these are the global basic options. Then we got buffs and debuffs. Generally you want all these done because if you're in a raid, you're probably going to have all the buffs. Scaling. So this is where the scaling of the stats comes in. This is going to tell you, do you need more crit? Do you need more mastery? Do you need more haste? Do you need more multi-strike? It's going to let you know which stat is best for you right now. And all of these stats move around as you gain more and more of them. So it's going to give you the most relevant stat at that time. So sure, online it might say, okay, your best stat is always going to be crit, mastery, multi. But then you might run this and you might have like 35% crit. And you're stacking it and stacking it and stacking it. And then this is going to say, whoa, actually right now, if you get more mastery, you're going to do more damage. So, static numbers on the website are not always as good as something that can run thousands and thousands and thousands of tests and tell you what is going to give you the best amount of damage. So scaling is very good. Plots are similar. It's kind of like a bar graph, not a bar graph, it's a line graph rather, and it's going to show you where stats dip and where they become better again. And that's kind of more to look into the future to see, right, if I keep stacking this, is it going to decline rapidly or is it going to stay steady? So it kind of gives you a little glimpse into what you might be looking for in gear coming up, especially as we're moving into a new tier now. It's very useful. So we're going to have all this turned on. Scaling, I've got, I don't need to do bonus armor and leech and all that stuff. I've just got the things that matter to me. And plots, the same again. Strength, crit, haste, mastery. I could put multi-strike on and that sort of thing, but, that's fine. Plot iterations, I generally have it at 100. Could do 1,000, might take a long time. Just for this video, I'm going to do 100. And I might put a number of plot points up a little bit as well. Actually, tell you what, we'll do 1,000. So all that is set up, and I'm going to go into simulate. We have this one here. This is the one that I just loaded in, and I'm going to hit simulate at the bottom right. And that's it. It's simulating the DPS and what the damage is. Now it's going to be scaling each step in each different stat, and we'll just wait for that to finish. Okay, so that's all finished, and what we're going to look at right now is the first thing we see is it says 58,155. So that should be my kind of average damage done to a single target boss. We're going to go down now, we're going to look. You can see I got my talents here, so you can check these, always check these because you may have something wrong. For example, I've just seen myself for a single target fight and I've got Blade Storm here. And that's not very good. I'd want to go in and I'd want to change that to something like Bloodbath and then, rerun the sim and see what's changed. So these are the scale factors. Now I generally look at normalized. Don't worry too much about the scale factors. Everything online and things like porn and other add-ons work on normalized factors usually, and it doesn't make a difference. So let's look at them for now because they're a bit simpler, a bit easier to read. So weapon DPS is 2.16. That means that we're going to look at the normalized point, which is strength. Strength is where it normalizes. It goes up and down from there because it's 1. So this says weapon DPS is more than twice as important as strength for a warrior, which is very, very strong. Attack power is 0.88, and the reason it's lower is because of the all wearing plate. So strength gives you 5% more, blah blah blah. It then says I should be on mastery. It then says I should be on crit, and then multi-versatility and haste come after. Now, what's different about this is if I was to change Blade Storm, I may have different stats. So you still have to rerun everything after you've done it, because, like I say, you're gonna have different stats, and if you're trying to get that single target damage, it might be different. It might say, well, multi is actually a lot more important if you're doing single target or something along those lines. So these numbers can be pulled out and put into other applications or websites to make sure that you're optimized. And it has things here, Wowhead for gear rankings and optimizers like Ask Mr. Robot. At the end of the video, I will go into that after, but at the moment, we'll just focus on Simcraft. So it says, what's going to be doing the most damage? Well, I'm going to be having Execute doing damage, Ren doing damage, Mortal Strike, Blade Storm, Colossus Smash, and it tells you how much damage each one should do. And active damage per execute time, so how much general damage does it do every time I use it. And it says here, Thunderclap and Whirlwind are very, very low. I don't know why Thunderclap and Whirlwind are there. Generally ignores them. It may be because I took Blade Storm, so it's thinking I'm AoEing. But again, that's just something that I would have to check and rerun everything. So Execute is obviously my biggest hitter, probably due to the amount of mastery I have working with arms. And then we can kind of see the scale factors again in a bit of a bar graph, so you can really get an idea of just how strong main hand weapon DPS is compared to everything else. Here we have the scaling stats, so we can see strength is huge, it scales the best. Second, mastery scales, and it's always above everything else. So basically this is saying always go mastery. There's never a point where they cross over and crit becomes better or multi becomes better or something. It's like haste, mastery is always best, crit is always second best, multi is always third best, and haste is always complete crap. So there's that for you. And then we go down here and it just gives you statistics on what you should be doing and stuff and your average spent time. So I can see if, like, say for example, you say, I spend a lot of time sitting around doing nothing. Well, guess what? You will. About 25 seconds of the time, which is quite a big chunk. As you can see, you're going to be sat around doing nothing. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. It just gives you this idea of how you should be playing and whether you're playing correctly. And that's really about it. There's loads and loads of information here, but they're the main focuses. So you got your stat scaling, so you can see what kind of where things are headed in the future. You've got your active damage resources, your execute per time. This is kind of going to be your priority system, more or less. Execute, rend, mortal strike, colossus smash, blade storm. It absolutely is your priority order. This is going to give you a really good idea of what you should be hitting first. And then you've got your normalized factors, you've got your pawn string, which you can actually copy and paste straight into pawn if you use it in game, and all that good stuff. So we're going to look at Ask Mr. Robot, and I'm going to show you how you can take all this information and you can optimize your character to be as good as it can be. Let's load your character in, and I'm going to load in Rage Wang on Tara Mill, and I'm going to load. It's going to cover this screen here. So what does this screen do? Not an awful lot. It's going to just kind of give you some information on things you've killed, tell you what your gear is, give you statistics, and then, yeah, so good stuff. So we got best in bags. This works if you pay for the subscription and things, but generally what you're going to want to do is best in slot and optimize gems and enchants. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go optimize gems and enchants. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to edit weights up here. You've got custom weights or you have default build. So your default build for arms is telling me to go crit, mastery, multi, which as we know from this information here is very, very wrong. It's actually mastery much above crit and then multi. So we're going to go into edit weights and we're going to put in these factors. So we got 2.16, strength is 1 because it always is. Crit is 0.74, attack power is 0.88, mastery is 0.83, multi 0.61, versatility 0.57, and haste is 0.39. Right, so we're going to save that. And now all that has changed. It said, oh, okay, well, this is fine. Like, mine's all in the right place. Now, for example, if I was to say multi-strike is actually 1.61 for some reason, it would say, well, you should really look at multi-strike being your best stat. You should optimize to go for this. You should use Mark of the Frostwolf, use your multi-strike enchants and things like that, which is fine. If we were to go into best in slot, we can then use the filters and we can say what we want. So we can have like other things ticked on and things like that. Or we can go into Hellfire Citadel, which is where most of us are, or you can go Black Rock Foundry. Let's put Black Rock Foundry as Mythic for some reason, just out of curiosity. And let's set Hellfire Citadel as Heroic, because that's what I happen to be running. So we can go in here and it's going to say, well, you have these and you want these. Now I can see that my legs are best in slot. Hell Render apparently is my best. You know, I need to upgrade my helmet to the multi one, but of course, don't forget we messed up the weight. So let's go back a minute. Let's put multi-strike back down to just 0.61, and you're going to see the difference here. Right, suddenly I have 4 pieces that are actually best in the slot. It says I need to get the empty drinking horn and my class trinket, upgrade my ring, obviously. And things like that, and it just says, okay, these are the items you'll be going for, and we know that this is probably going to be very correct with our weights because of the fact that, as we saw earlier, like mastery and strength and crit, they were all in a straight line. They never overlap, whereas other classes might overlap. Like you might hit a breaking point where, as Fury, crit becomes pointless and you actually want to go for more mastery, or as some other class like X doesn't do Y anymore, so you want to go for Z. It does happen, and you need to be simming yourself, I'd say at least once a week, if not after every raid if you collect gear, and just looking at what you can do to improve yourself, and then using Ask Mr. Robot as a tool with your custom information in order to get yourself to a point where you're absolutely min-maxing and doing the best that you can do. So, I think that's probably about it, really, guys. Anything else you want to ask me, feel free to drop it in comments. And yeah, I will see you next time.